Nick Sakeva, and I'm the project manager for the Ben Wilson Street Corridor project with Freese Nichols. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I have a few slides prepared to give an overview of the project, but tonight wanted to let everyone know that we just really want this to be a listening session. We want to hear the feedback from the community, the stakeholders on this project, and we're just at the very beginning of this design process. This project was approved by council back in January, and we're really just getting going. We've got a few folks here tonight on the design team. I've got Ben Galvan with Civil Corps and Randy Yannick with Civil Corps, and we will be here to help answer any questions. There's a few boards in the back. I've spoken to several of you to go over some of the elements of the project, to answer any questions, and I'll be available to do that after the meeting as well. These slides were also presented to the City Council a couple months ago, or I'm sorry, back in January. This project, as the City Manager mentioned, we started this project back in 2015. The Victoria NPO approved the Ben Wilson Street Corridor study, and we really focused on this project back in 2015 and 2016 to develop some of the concepts that you see here. And so now we're at the very beginning of the process to design these concepts that were approved as part of that study. Real quick, the project objectives. Ben Wilson is a 5-lane roadway. We're going to reconfigure that roadway down to a 3-lane roadway. One of the primary purposes of that is to protect the increase in number of students that will be crossing this corridor back and forth for UHV. We really looked at how to balance the safety and also the traffic needs of this corridor when we developed the design. We're also going to be looking at improvements to storm drainage and utilities. We're going to be adding urban and streetscape elements. We really want this to be a showcase project to create the entrance both north and south into the UHV campus. We're going to be enhancing pedestrian elements, adding crosswalks, adding crossing signals for those crosswalks, adding street lighting. We're also going to be adding some irrigation, landscaping, and we're also looking at some identity signs coming in and out of the university as well as a tower. So there's lots of features to this project. It's not a typical standard transportation project. It's what we call an urban design streetscape project. This is the alternative 3A. This board on the lower part of the slide is what is back in the back room. In the upper left, you see the 3-lane section there is what we're going to be focused on. The image on the right was a preliminary rendering that we did when we put together the study. We will update that rendering based on the final design project. So there will be an update to that rendering to show what the proposed improvements will look like. As I mentioned, this project has a heavy urban design component. We've got several landscape architects and others that are going to be looking at how to really create a sense of arrival to the UHV campus and also kind of marrying that to the pedestrian safety aspects of the project as well. Just a slide that shows some of the photos of the existing conditions. This board is out there as well. Just wanted to kind of, provide folks that are, looking or watching this on Facebook just an idea of what some of the existing conditions that we're looking at working with on this 5-lane roadway. We're going to take a look at not only the roadway itself, but how to integrate the theme of the campus into this roadway. We want to make sure that it not only reflects the character of the city, but also the character of the campus and blends very well into the ultimate design product. This is just an image of Texas Wesleyan University in Fort Worth. This just kind of shows how we were able to kind of take a pedestrian walkway and transform it into, something aesthetic and something nice that students would want to congregate and folks would want to be around. One of the big issues of this project is drainage. We are aware that every major rain event, Ben Wilson Street does have some ponding water and flooding issues. The overall drainage on this project is actually controlled by a downstream storm drain along Red River. That storm drain is not part of this project, but that storm drain on Red River currently does not have adequate conveyance capacity. What we're going to be looking at this project is updating the existing storm drains underneath the street. We're going to be looking at inlet capacity, and we're going to be looking at improvements to improve the street itself, but we can't solve the ultimate drainage problem, which is a constrained, undersized system on the downstream end. That will be a future project that the city will have to program in the future. The city's very well aware of that drainage issue. They have identified that as part of their master drainage plan. That project will come sometime in the future. The existing storm lines on this project, there's 2 storm lines that run down both sides of the roadway. We're going to be designing this roadway to not only incorporate those drains, but also possibly looking to add an additional drain line to increase the amount of stormwater storage underneath the street. In addition, by narrowing the roadway from a 5-lane to a 3-lane section, we're also decreasing the amount of impervious area, which will provide some improvements to the overall drainage. As I mentioned, the proposed project is anticipated to improve drainage in 2 ways. The narrowing of the street and the addition of green areas along both sides of the roadway and along the median. And then we're also going to be looking at adding additional inlet capacity to capture additional stormwater on this project. As I mentioned, these project improvements will help, but they will not fully eliminate the existing drainage problem that's out there. These are the folks that we have previously communicated with as part of the study. One of the things that we want to do a good job of is we want to listen to you and we want to listen to these stakeholders to make sure that we have incorporated all of the ideas that we can look at to make this project something that's an asset for the community and for the university. As I mentioned, we are just beginning the preliminary design phase. This project will be approximately a 9-month design project. We are currently at the public meeting there on the left. Surveyors are currently working out in the roadway right now, collecting survey data. We're going to have some geotechnical crews that are going to be doing some pavement borings to give us information on the proposed pavement improvements for the project. And we're going to be working toward a 30% design level here in the next few months. But we're anticipated to go about 9 months and complete the final design phase by the end of 2020. Once that design phase is complete, the city will go to a bid process. That bid process will be approximately 3 to 4 months. And then following the bid phase, we'll go to the construction phase. And the construction phase currently is anticipated to start sometime in mid-2021 is the rough estimate. Depending on the final design improvements, that construction phase will probably last on the order of magnitude about 12 months for construction. And so that will put the completion of the project sometime in 2022. This slide just shows just a kind of a bar chart schedule. Up on the upper left, we're at the public meeting, so as I mentioned, we're just beginning that preliminary design process. We've got about 9 months to go until we get to final design, so we still have a lot of time to incorporate ideas and comments and elements that may come from this group here tonight. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ashley for any questions and discussion.
I want to briefly just ask some folks to come to the front if you don't mind. And then that way, when we're getting to the questions piece, everybody's already up here in the spotlight. Yeah. Mike, if you don't show up on Facebook, it's like you were ever here. So, Matt, you're welcome to come up to y'all. Okay. All right. Okay. So I want to briefly make a few other additional introductions. You've already have heard and have met a couple of these folks, but I'll start on my left. Ken Gill at the very left, he's our Public Works Director and City Engineer for the City of Victoria. Of course, we've already heard from Dr. Glenn, President of UHB. To my immediate left is Mike Etienne. Mike Etienne is our new Assistant City Manager. He's been on the job for how many weeks? 2 months? Gosh, time flies. So 2 months. So the departments that he oversees are planning and development services, as well as public works and capital projects. And so he's an individual that will be heavily involved with this particular project. He comes to us from the city of San Antonio, where he was an executive there with the capital improvements department, as well as a few other areas. So he brings a lot of relevant experience to this project from a management standpoint. To my right, we have Matt Alexander, who is the capital improvements director of capital projects for UHB. And of course, you already heard from Nick. And of course, I'm going to be up here too. So with that said, we'd be happy to entertain any questions that you might have. And of course, Ashley's out there with the mic.
All right, so most might be directed to Mr. Sikeva, is that right? Okay, but if you have any questions, just raise your hand, we'll come to you, and then we'll try to get your question answered just as soon as we can. Make sure to speak into the mic, please. State your name if you'd like.
Hello, I'm Ann. Will there be added traffic signals between Red River and Airline, or will they be the kind like we have by the walkway, or that signal where people need to cross?
Yeah, so the question of traffic signals, so there's existing traffic signals at the intersection of Red River and Airline. Those will remain. There'll be some pedestrian signal enhancements at those intersections to accommodate new ADA ramps. Those existing signals that are there are forecast to remain. In between those two signals, we'll have multiple crosswalks for UHB. Those crosswalks will have pedestrian signals that we call pedestrian hybrid beacons or PHBs. Those are signals that are designed to assist pedestrians as they cross the road. They have mast arms similar to a traffic signal, and they provide a stop condition for vehicles to allow pedestrians to safely cross. So those are the new signals that you will see is at the crosswalks in front of UHB.
And they'll only be activated when somebody needs to cross the street?
That's correct.
Okay.
So if they're not activated, the signals remain dark, and they'll only be on when a pedestrian needs assistance to cross the road.
Okay.
All right, any other questions? Simply raise your hand and I'll come to you. And this one, right behind you.
Yes, my name's Henrik, and you made reference to drainage, and there is a problem right now with Ben Wilson and drainage there. You mentioned something about this project is going to aggravate that problem currently. You also mentioned that everything's going to be tied into Red River and that drainage, and that's a future project for the city of Victoria. My question is, when in the future? How far down the road?
All right, great question. This, of course, is the topic of great importance to our city council as well. To give you some perspective, so that Red River drainage project, and Ken, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the estimated cost on that fix is $15 to $20 million. we, at the city, every year, for instance, for the current fiscal year we're on, we're spending about $14 million in total in all of our capital projects throughout the city, and so these are street projects and a few others. And so that project alone blows how much money we have every year for all of our capital projects throughout the city. And so it's a very kind of cost prohibitive project to tackle at one go. We're looking at exploring different scenarios through grant opportunities or other programs that are out there to be able to leverage having that project completed. But at this time, because of the cost of it, it makes it very difficult to commit to addressing it when we have other needs, such as streets, that appear to always be a higher priority to our residents. I know that's probably not the answer that you're looking for, but that's where we're at with it. And it's obviously very important for this project that when we do get to the time of being able to address the Red River drainage project, that this project would be able to tie into that. We obviously don't want to develop a project or design a project that, years from now, when we do get to the point of having that project done, that what gets done now as part of this would have to get redone. And so you hit the nail on the head when you suggested that this project is intended to not make it any worse. And there's a likelihood that it might make it a little bit better. But we understand that the true solution is that Red River project. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
One thing that we're going to look at in the design is it's as you go down Ben Wilson, it's flat. There's no crown in that road, and we know that as you're traveling, the water gets deep all the way across it. Is one of our goals is if we can crown that road a little bit and get that high point in the middle of the road where it's not as deep, get those emergency vehicles through, and we understand that, and that's one of the things we're going to really strive to change that system and improve that drainage to get the cars through. That's one of our big goals.
Okay, so how's that gonna affect the neighborhood?
The neighborhood is not going to be affected on this project. It's actually because we're reducing the scope and the width of I would call it just the pavement. It's going to actually reduce the amount of water and runoff that's coming out right now. And it's not going to change. We're not going to add any more water to it. University of Houston-Victoria, when they work on their projects and their buildings, they're doing a lot of in-house detention so that the current drainage that's there now doesn't get worse. And that's the key to this project, is not making the drainage worse.
My name is Clint. To further that question, as I walked in, my question would have been, is there going to be, when you were rebuilding that street, is there going to be an elevation that could possibly create some drainage issues into the neighborhood?
No, it's what I'm talking about is just on Ben Wilson. Is right now the street's got a slight crown to it, and like most of the streets when you go down, there's a crown. We're not going to increase it to a point to where we cause this change the drainage. We're trying to keep that center turn lane. In other words, reduce that depth that's there now, because we all know that when it rains hard and it's fast, the intersection goes under. Is try to elevate it enough that center turn lane is easier for emergency vehicles to navigate and the citizens. But as far as the water flow, it's going to remain the same or less.
I will say I appreciate the fact that it's a sensitive subject and y'all are aware of it.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions? We're ready.
I live in the neighborhood behind, right back here. And actually my house backs up to Ben Wilson Street. And we have different types of fencing back there. Some are privacy, others are hurricane fence, chain link fence. My question, I guess, is are any of the residents going to have an opportunity for input into the design of the sidewalk or the fencing that will be between that sidewalk and our property?
Well, do you have any ideas now?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, right? I mean, part of tonight was also to hear from y'all with some ideas. You know, if you have concerns about, you know, the proximity of the sidewalk, if you have concerns about the lighting, if you have concerns about some of those things, I mean, we're up here to help clarify some of those things. And, you know, if there are something, you know, we've tried to do a really good job of catching all those items, but we don't live where you live. And so if you're communicating to us that you care about the lighting, well, we'll make sure that it's properly lit. If you communicate to us that you're concerned about the proximity to the sidewalk, you know, we'll be conscious of that. And so, all jokes aside, I mean, if you do have some specific concern, bring it up. Or if you have a specific suggestion, bring it up.
I know that there are other property owners here that back up to the street. Is there going to be a committee that will allow us to participate in when it comes to input into the design?
So tonight was intended to get some of that feedback. Once we get, and Nick mentioned that soon, or not soon, in a few months, they'll get to the 30% design process. So at that time, there is I don't think we call it a committee, but there is a group made up of city individuals, UHB individuals, that gets involved with the review of that. Some of that information is going to be presented to council when we hit certain milestones, and so there would be opportunities at those city council public meetings for people to go see the update on the specific design and provide input on that specific design. Throughout this entire process, we plan on continuing to make the residents aware of these opportunities, and so for instance, even for tonight, we sent over 500 postcards to surrounding neighborhoods. And so we intend to continue to do that whenever there is another opportunity or presentation to council, where you all would be welcome to look at that and provide feedback in that setting.
So, okay, and I don't want to keep harping on this particular question, but you mentioned the cost of the Red River Drain.
Right.
And that, it's going to take quite a bit of money.
Right.
Is it going to be included in some type of future plan? And, I know that eventually it's going to have to be addressed. So, and it may not be in the next year or 2 or 3 or 4 years, but are we looking 20 years down the road?
Sure.
And that's something that I think we need to keep, keep that dialogue open. As time goes on, as we get rainstorms, hurricanes,
Right.
this is really going to be something that we'll just have to wait and see how it affects the street and those neighborhoods and residents along that line. But
Yeah, I can tell you, some of the things that we're working on right now outside of the context of this project. City Council, in their approval of our fiscal year 20 budget, which we're in the middle of now, did allocate a couple $100,000 to help us update our drainage master plan. And so we're in the process of RFQing that out. And the intent of the update to the drainage master plan is to provide us a fresh look at not only this area, but because there are several areas around town where we know that street flooding is a challenge, not only for the people that live around it or drive through it, but quite frankly, sometimes can be a development challenge, right? Because we want to make sure that the city grows, that we have infill, right? And so I'm sure a lot of you drive around and see empty lots, right? And oftentimes, we may not connect the dots between, well, maybe that empty lot is not developed because it's got a drainage issue. And so we're trying to refresh that plan to make some recommendations to us on how we can invest a few dollars that we have and where we can get the greatest return of that investment. But then also look at what are other communities doing? How are other communities funding major projects like this? Because I can tell you coming from the outside that there are specific avenues that we haven't looked at and on how other communities fund these projects that are of this size. And so we're headed down the path of having that conversation. Council is committed to having that conversation, not only on drainage, but on streets. And so we're in the middle of gathering all the information we can so that we can make an informed professional recommendation to council and they can make an informed policy decision. So it's very much at the forefront of what's going on. And I realize that for the people that are directly impacted, it can't happen fast enough, I get it. But I assure you that we're not turning a blind eye to it.
And I have the mic. Will the 3 lanes go all the way to Airline, or is it gonna stop just north of campus here at the turn into College?
Okay, so this is the same board that's mounted in the back. So the question is, will the 3 lanes go all the way to Airline? The answer is yes, they will extend all the way to Airline. So the 3-lane section will essentially be from Airline tentatively to the beginning, right there at the university where we start the raised median. And that raised median will carry through the university, and then once you get to Red River, it'll transition back to a 5-lane between Red River and US Business 59.
And so there will be an extension of pedestrian and sidewalk stuff on both sides?
That's right. So between Airline and Red River, we'd like to get an 8-foot sidewalk on both sides of the roadway.
Hi, my name is Sarah. Okay, so I know there was big controversy way back in the beginning when this was talked about doing this all together. I live in Wilson's backyard. So sit in my backyard and from Airline to Red River, it's the perfect spot for drag racing. I wouldn't know because I don't do that, but yeah, it's perfect. So that whole speeding issue and safety for students and all that, I get. So I'm well for it. That being said, there are emergency vehicles that travel that road every day, multiple times a day. Ambulances, fire trucks, whatnot. So what's the plan for reroute? Because obviously they are emergent, they speed, and that's what we're trying to eliminate is any kind of a risk for students. So is there a plan? Will they be rerouted? Are they going to be allowed to drive quickly down this road? What is, I know that was a major part of the discussion when people were voicing their pros and cons about this happening at all.
Okay, so we encountered the same question when we did the study. We understand from residents of the Bronson Terrace neighborhood that there was a lot of drag racing. The city has since reduced the speed limit on Ben Wilson from 40 miles an hour to 30 miles an hour. And hopefully that has helped some. Usually if there's still a problem, sometimes the city may have to request target enforcement of that speed. So that's always an option. If there is continues to be an issue, I would encourage you to maybe reach out to Ken Gill at the city to request that target enforcement. We also met with fire and EMS during the study phase, and we talked about the fact that Ben Wilson is a emergency route to Citizens Medical Center, and they do use it, and they will continue to use it. When we reviewed this concept with them, they did not have any concerns about gaining access to, through this corridor. What we heard was, and the way we're going to lay this out, these lanes are going to be wide enough to where if there is an emergency vehicle, there will be room to pass on the side. So these will be 16, especially when you get down to the university, those lanes by the university will be wider lanes to allow a car to actually pull over to the side of the curb and allow an emergency vehicle to pass. We're also going to have some kind of bus turnout areas and driveways, but this section through the university is relatively short. It's not that long. There's a lot of driveway entrances, bus pull-out areas. There's going to be multiple ways for a vehicle to gently pull over to the side to allow an emergency vehicle to pass. One of the things that we also heard during the study from fire and EMS was that they tend to prefer the smoother routes, not necessarily the faster routes, but the pavement that's smoother when they do access or when they do make their response calls to get back to the hospital. So I hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
So we did receive one question on Facebook, and it's related to what you were just talking about, Nick. And I'm not sure if this needs to be answered by Ken, but the question is when will we begin to see an added police presence to enforce the new speed limit? Their indication is that traffic is moving pretty quick in that area, although it has been reduced, and specifically from 7 to 8 in the morning, and can be extremely difficult to pull out from Bronson Terrace onto Ben Wilson.
I'll take that. So the concern is enforcement of the speed limit, correct? Okay.
Correct.
If there's a concern now, we can certainly look at it. You know, I don't think any of us up here, unless the police chief was here, would be able to specifically answer what it's been in the past. But we can take that as an action item and follow up and ensure that that enforcement is occurring and taking place. You know, we actually, believe it or not, this design will actually assist with that. Because the data also backs up that as you have these medians, as you create a look, a feel of a narrower vision, people naturally slow down. You know, right now it's kind of like a wide open, and that's why it's perfect for the drag racing, right? Because there is no median, there's no anything, so they feel like they can go really fast, and if they swerve a little bit, it's no big deal. They're not going to hit anything. And so, believe it or not, having the median in place will actually help curb the speed. But we can look at that and take it as an action item and ensure that we're having enforcement. I was alluded to earlier, we do have the ability to have teams that specifically go out during certain times to address that. Did you want to address that? Yeah.
I can. We have had it, and Officer Allen was part of the deal. We have had the speed trailer. We've had the speed trailer out there right when they changed it.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Officer David Broder with Victoria Police.
You may recognize him from the Victoria Police Department Facebook page.
Thank you. We had the speed trailer. I'm not here as a police officer. I live in here also, but we had, correct, BJ, we had the speed trailer there for quite some time.
Yes.
They did some studies. They flooded it for quite some time. And I don't know the statistics that they got, but the traffic safety unit is well aware, and we're working really hard to keep that speed down, because it is kind of hard to get out because of the speeders and stuff. And I totally agree with Mr. Garza that that's going to create a much better place for us to get out, because it's going to slow the speed down a lot just by the mere presence of the lanes appearing smaller and things. So we are working on it and completely aware of it. It takes some time for people to realize that the speed limit went from, what was it, BJ, 35 or 40?
40 to 30.
To 40 to 30. That doesn't seem like a lot, but really, I notice it now. In fact, I was following somebody here today, and I was like, oh, this is really slow, but it just takes a while for people to get used to it. But we're aware of it and definitely working on it.
And we'd be happy to look at it again too. So there is a question right next.
I was wondering what the long-term plan was for the existing soccer field there that's on the main campus. And also understand at one time Victoria College was going to put another entrance road in that area that would back up to all the houses there on the district.
I can't answer for what Victoria College wants to do, but I can answer about UHB. Long-term plan for the soccer field that exists there now is for there to be another academic building there. And that will take place as we were able to develop the 65 acres that was gifted to the university by the Bennett Wood family out near the airport. We have plans, I don't have them here on this laptop to share with you, but we do have plans for baseball, softball, and soccer fields in that area. So we know that soccer field, which we put a lot of money into, is not going to stay there forever. But it will become another building. Now, in the near term, probably what we will be doing in the next year is taking the practice field and eliminating it and making it temporary parking. and working with Victoria College to move the practice field across the street to the west of the existing soccer field. But again, that's all temporary until we're able to, we're just going to have to raise, I don't know, $40, $50 million, and we should be able to do that pretty quickly. If everyone here wants to leave a check, we'll be glad to. I grew up in the parsonage. I do have an offering plate in the car. I'll be glad to buy it and get it.
And I'll briefly comment on the Victoria College piece. We do know that Victoria College has a master plan, and our mayor is actually very involved with that process. So we do very much intend, as part of the design, have conversations with Victoria College, get a really good feel for what their plans are to ensure that the design of this corridor is consistent with also their goals. And so we're definitely planning on asking them to have a seat at the table as part of the stakeholder input of the design process.
Okay, I have one more question.
Okay, over.
Coming to you, hold on just a second. We want our listeners on Facebook to hear.
Okay, now.
We seeded questions.
Yes, you did. There's a lot of pedestrian traffic, not just university students that eventually will, but there are high school students. And right now, the back of my fence, and I go back there and I try to clean as much as I can, but it needs to be cleaned up. In fact, there are some low-lying limbs that I've seen a youth have to get out on the street to avoid the limbs. And it is something that I think between now and the time that the project is complete, if we can at least keep that into consideration on maintaining that side of the sidewalk.
Right. One thing I'd like to kind of mention to the property owners of Bronson Terrace is, I've been here a long time, so I know that chain link fence with the green straps on it, that's Bronson Terrace's fence. And we would love to work with that neighborhood to find a way to enhance it or remove it. We've talked about it for years and years, and I think now would be a great time to get with the home board, the group, if it's now reverted to the property owners, it'd be a great time, and clean up that. We're shrinking the road, that's gonna pull that sidewalk away from that fence line a little bit, give a little more buffer. So we look forward to that, and after the meeting, get with somebody that's with Bronson Terrace and how do we keep that coordination going with regard to that fence.
Okay. What about the water meters? There are water meters back there on the sidewalk? Are they gonna stay there, or are you gonna relocate them?
They'll stay in that general location. What we'll do is we pull that road narrower, that sidewalk will come away. It won't be, the meters won't be in the sidewalk. That's our goal. They'll still be in that same general location. We don't want to change that, because that would change all the property owners' plumbing.
Let me go first. My questions to the city, has been Wilson traffic moved to other locations? Is there any plan to improve from Jordan Street? It's a little bit rough, and I think what's happened there.
As city manager said, we're looking at all the projects, we're looking at all the streets. As council goes through their capital projects, yes, we do look at every single one of them and just try to fit the improvements, whether it's a maintenance or a longer maintenance. One thing for the public and Facebook that we're getting ready and we're working on right now is we've hired a company to really do an in-depth study of our streets and our pavement conditions, and come back and take an overall look and see. We know, I think this public and us, we know what streets are bad, but which streets are on that line where we need to address them now so they don't go bad, which ones we can do maintenance, get a general cost and a big perspective of our streets. And I think that's gonna help guide our council members, the city, and city manager into a future path that gets us into a great roadway for the city.
And the goal of our approach on all of our infrastructure projects is that in the future, what my goal is when you ask that question, that we be able to tell you that project costs $7 million and it's scheduled to occur in 2023, right? Right now, we don't really have that level of detail of planning, but we want to get there because we recognize that residents have questions and are probably tired of just hearing, well, we'll get to it at some point. You know, we want to really solidify our planning exercise, and unfortunately, it takes time to gather the data to put that type of product together. But we are headed in that direction. Where did Ashley go? Oh, there you are. Okay. Did you have a question?
Yeah, my question was, I don't see any bike lanes. Was that in the proposal or bike lanes for bicycles? Especially if you're enlarging the sidewalk, then I'm afraid you get mixed pedestrian and bicycle traffic if there's any.
Yes, that's a great question. The 8-foot sidewalk is, we call them conjunctive use, and that is actually a legal route for a bicycle and pedestrian. There's enough room, and it's tried and true. It's in all the national standards. It meets ADA, of course.
Right.
So yes, that was one of the big reasons
to
to
make them
8-foot.
so wide. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, good.
And scooter friendly. Okay. That's the thing. Yeah, you got a scooter right now.
Hi, my name is Joanna. I'm gonna go back to the speed limit question. Now, there was conversation about the anticipation that drivers will slow down because of the design, and also that we have over the speed limit. Is there any anticipation to continue to lower the speed limit? Because I work at the U Commons and it is pretty trafficy, and it is getting pretty crazy. And I mean, the joke is right now is that when we try to cross that road, it's like playing Frogger.
Right.
So it's slightly terrifying.
Do the current college students know what you're talking about when you mentioned Frogger?
I know
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. By the way, I like your choice of words, trafficking. I'm going to steal that word and utilize it. I don't know if it was looked at during that thing. So
One of the things we talked about, and Nick talked about, is we're going to do that pedestrian hybrid beacon, and that's the safest thing for the students. It gives the traffic a stop condition and allows the students to move freely. Currently, right now, the University of Houston-Victoria is in the process of installing one now because they know that is an important issue, and we expect that to be up in the next couple of months, I think. It should be up by the end of March. So that's a great question. And we will continue as a police department to monitor the speeds. That's an important factor.
Thank you.
All right, real quick, we had another question related to Bronson Terrace, and it was, give me just a second. Another question is there any worry that individuals who use Ben Wilson Street will begin using the neighborhood as a cut through to bypass that section of Ben Wilson? If so, is there any way to control speeding through that specific neighborhood?
So we looked at that, and my experience is because Bronson Terrace was and I'll say this, a well-designed neighborhood that makes, it's not going to be a cut through. There's too many curves, too many bends, too many goes arounds. I don't think so, but if it is, we can sure look at options. And one option is, of course, would be to extend that median and reduce that left turn lane in the McDowell. I don't think that's probably a great idea, but we can always look to see if there is cut-through traffic as we move forward with this project.
And I'll just add on to that too, that we are currently having a conversation with council about speed limits in residential neighborhoods. And so there is some interest from some council members about looking at that. Currently, you may or you may not know that automatically the speed limit in a neighborhood is 30 miles per hour, regardless of whether there's a sign or not. you know, if you remember that booklet you read, you know, when you got your license at 16 years old or 17 years old, you know, page 25, says that, you know, residential streets by default are 30 miles per hour. But there is an ongoing conversation about looking at what it would take to reduce that. There is a cost impact to that, because as I said, by default, it's 30 miles per hour. And so if we were to lower it, we would literally have to put up signs in every single neighborhood, and each sign's like $400, I think, for the sign and installation. So once you multiply that, you know, times hundreds, you know, that adds up. But know that there is a conversation taking place right now about that.
So to that, the through traffic through the neighborhood, so my house butts up to Wilson, and I can say that the cut through traffic has increased quite a bit. Not only has it increased, going into when you turn on College, there is no stop sign, there is no yield sign, so not only are they cutting through, going faster, not yielding or stopping, and I know that we have been almost run over more than a handful of times using that street to cut through the neighborhood.
I concur. Their cut through is,
Right.
cutting through is already an issue, so I understand that it's a wait and see kind of process to see if it's going to escalate.
Well, that's an
But
issue now.
at
We
College
certainly
and
won't wait and
Hilton,
see.
there is no stop sign, and I do believe in the past there has been people in the neighborhood who have advocated for that to be done, and it hasn't been
Yeah.
done. There is no stop sign there, so for
Okay.
cut through people,
Well,
they
well,
just stroll right through.
Sure. So the city has a traffic management team that gets together occasionally and reviews these types of inquiries or requests. And it includes folks from the police department, from public works, even TxDOT, if it impacts TxDOT, school district, because oftentimes we get these concerns from residents about, you know, school safety, people walking to school, speed limit, stop signs, yield signs, you know, what does that structure look like? Painted crosswalks, are they there or they're not? And so we'll take it as an action item today to look at it now and not wait and see. Because there are things that we can do now, whether it's adding a stop sign, painting something better, or even just looking at dropping the speed limit just in that neighborhood. Those are things that we don't have to wait and see. We could look at doing those now. And so we'll commit to doing that, and we'll find a way to get the word out about what the results of that study is. Thank you for that.
Hi, my name is Oliver. I just want to know how many vehicles per day use Ben Wilson, and how are they going to be impacted going to the hospitals, clinics, and doctor's visits? Or are they just going to have to find another way to get to those locations?
So the question of how many vehicles use Ben Wilson, when we studied the project back in 2015, 2016, total 24-hour count was around 12,000 to 13,000 vehicles per day.
Recently, have we done another traffic count on that?
I have not done, I'm not sure if the city has done another count, but I'm not aware of one. Can't.
Because that was like 5 years ago, it's been a good while, and we've added to our population a whole lot since then.
Oh, we have the high school as well. We go get any from.
We can add that to our traffic count system. We have it, it's online right now, believe it or not. We go out every so many years and we actually do traffic counts on other than TxDOT roads, but we can actually talk about that during our traffic management team. That's our best group that we really talk about everything, and with all the powers that be, there's some great discussion and great solutions.
Well, this has always been a cut-through street. I've lived there 35 years, and whoever thinks that it's not, needs to just come sit in my front yard.
Yes, I agree on Modista. You're right. Now that's again, we'll look at that through our traffic management team. If there's something that makes obvious, a stop sign, and I'm gonna be honest with the public, stop signs aren't always the answer for speed control because it can be an unexpected, and it leads to a false sense of security if you're walking or somebody's out and you say, oh, there's a stop sign. If that driver's not expecting it, it puts that pedestrian in danger. So we really take a hard look at not just putting up stop signs for speed control because it's driver expectation, but we will look at it if there are places in certain instances where we need one, and on Loma Vista, for instance, that makes really good traffic sense. Yes, we can install those stop signs.
We only need one stop sign on Loma Vista, the one that's not there.
Right.
Was it? I mean, I'm gonna ask a silly question. Was it there before and it got knocked down?
No, never.
Okay. What intersection?
Milton and College, the short college off of Ben Wilson and Milton.
Okay. I'll write that down.
And actually, I speak for myself as a Bronson Terrace resident. I don't speak for anybody else who lives further away on the Ben Jordan side. But it wouldn't hurt my feelings if they shut that short college at Ben Wilson, just shut it off. So that eliminates cut through. It eliminates any risk of any, there are multiple incidents where there have been potential accidents there at that small intersection. But it would eliminate anybody traipsing through our neighborhood.
Sure, and we could look
So,
at it.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that,
I would
but I'm
like to
sure
get-
there are people that would be.
But that cuts down the emergency entrance,
Yeah.
so I don't think that's worth doing.
We've tried
There's
that in
Terrace,
another neighborhood.
There's, yeah.
We tried that in another neighborhood, the same type of situation, and it was good for about half the neighborhood, and the other
Right.
half exactly the same
Sure,
thing,
I
just
understand.
emergency access and an additional point to get out.
At least with the stop sign, you can give a ticket then because they ran it.
Correct.
So,
And most people obey stop signs. I mean, it's just inherent for that. Thank you.
And just to kind of piggyback off of that, you know, so the point that stop signs aren't the only solution, I mean, there are other things. And so we are also in the process at the city of establishing a protocol that helps us determine when, for instance, a speed hump is okay. Because this cut-through issue, there are plenty of other parts of our city that have this cut-through concern, whether it was a school that popped up, and now there's cut-through concerns because of a school that popped up that wasn't there before, or whatever the case may be. And we want to make sure that whatever we do at the city, we're consistent. And so for us, it's important that we establish some type of protocol with triggers that determine when it makes sense to put a speed hump, when it makes sense to put a stop sign, because we don't want to go down the path of putting these things just for the sake of, you know, well, that group really wants it, so we put it up. And but like Ken mentioned, I was trying to think back to, I was about to call you Donald. But what Ken mentioned about how sometimes the stop signs work against you, sometimes the speed humps work against you too. You know, it's also documented in case studies that residential streets that got speed humps then requested that they be removed. Because then the people that live right near the speed hump would hear the car go boom, 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 boom. And so then that person would rally up the troops and say, well, I can't sleep at night because of the speed hump. And so, you know, there's so many different components to it, and we're obviously not going to solve it today, but we appreciate the feedback, and we'll certainly take it as an action item. And like I mentioned earlier, we'll find a way to adequately communicate to the neighborhood on what's decided on how to approach that. And just, by the way, the person that you more likely would hear from would be Mike. Part of Mike's role is to be our liaison with the different neighborhoods. And so if there is a structure, HOA in your neighborhood, Mike would be the individual that would come to your meetings and address all of those issues.
Okay, my name is Lucy, and my question is, and I'm sorry I came late, and I wanted to know if you cannot move the houses, so you're not gonna touch nothing in Cypress Street, because I live in there. That's Cypress Street?
Yeah, I don't think we're touching, yeah, we're not touching any residential private
Okay,
property.
okay, that's why I'm here. I just wanted to know that.
No, great question, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me ask that question. I'm assuming, and I don't want to do that. The Palmetto street that runs through the middle of Bronson Terrace, goes up to Airline.
Yes.
It's closed off. That is Victoria College property down there, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
so that's not, wouldn't include them.
It's not, yeah, that would be.
Please
their-
don't ever open that. Never.
I've heard that.
That will really make our cut-through traffic worse.
I've heard that for
Yeah,
20 years since
the
I
way
was
they barricaded, I figured there was never gonna, but
Right.
every once in a while we hear, what if they cut that through?
And that would be something to look at the Victoria College plan, as far as, I don't know that they have any thoughts of tying it in, because the residents don't really want that, and I don't see why they would do, but I know that's part of it ties into their property.
Another question received online is, for students, will they ride the shuttle to cross the street, or will there be crossroads put in place?
So with this project, we are planning multiple crosswalks across Ben Wilson Street, immediately adjacent to the university. So one of the things that we'll look at in the design process is where the best location for those crossings will be, based on where we anticipate the most student traffic to cross the roadway.
This is following off the Palmetto question that was just asked. I worked at Victoria College, and my director was sharing with us one day a proposal plan, a VC that showed that being a possibility of opening Palmetto, and I was wondering if that is actually in discussion.
Yeah, that would be a question for Victoria College, and we'd be happy to gather your contact information and put you in touch with the right person to help answer your question. This specific project and tonight's conversation is centered around the Ben Wilson part of it. I realize there are cut-through concerns, and that's why we're discussing those. But some of those other issues that you're bringing up, they're good questions. But unfortunately, I don't think any of us up here is prepared to give you a specific answer to that at this point. But thank you. And can somebody make sure we get her contact information? Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Well, great questions, everybody. Okay, all right. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. We obviously want to thank UHB again for hosting us, and of course all the individuals that are up here representing Freese Nichols and Civil Corps, which, by the way, wasn't specifically mentioned, but Civil Corps is a local engineering company, and so we have a good combination of engineer design firm that is not based in Victoria, which is Freese Nichols, in partnership with Civil Corps and Ben Belmont and his team. And so that's a great team for us. As I alluded to earlier, we plan on continuing to be as transparent as possible with what is going on with this project. And so I encourage you to keep an eye out on future notices that we send out, so that you can hopefully join us at a city council meeting and see what some of these designs look like. In the interim, I'm happy to stick around, pass out business cards, also Mike from the city standpoint, and I'm sure the others are also willing to stick around and exchange contact information should you have any questions outside of the formalized structured meetings that we plan on having. So with that said, thank you all for coming. Thank you for tuning in on Facebook. Appreciate y'all, and I hope you have a good night.